Steven's Birthday is an episode about growing up at your own pace and feeling comfortable with your own identity. The episode is focused on Steven's half-gem physiology limiting his rate of physical growth due to the differing mechanisms of aging in gems. The concerns of those around him cause Steven to question his own identity and appearance, and while the story revolves around magical space powers, the notion itself is very applicable to children and adolescents, quote-unquote, growing up at differing rates than their peers. It's a direct parallel to peer pressure causing some people to wear fake identities and personas to better blend in with expectations of the people around them. I loved how the episode was set up, with Greg flipping through his photo book and haphazardly commenting about how Steven stagnated. It really sets the tone for the episode and establishes an unintended harshness about the way Steven is perceived by those around him. This is further confounded by Connie's transparent disappointment that she and Steven may not grow up in step with one another. We have seen Steven's emotional maturity progress leaps and bounds throughout this show, and his progress as a character is certainly something to be appreciated. But on an intellectual and physical level, Steven is very much the same boy as when we started. After Greg and Connie share their not-so-secret discussion in the van, we as an audience really connect with the pain and insecurity Steven starts to feel. This moment also marks when the viewer can predict the precise story route the episode would take and how the plot progression would unfold, and Steven's Birthday did not take any unexpected twists or turns down the road. The episode unfolded exactly how I thought it would, and personally, I think it would be a contender for the most predictable episode of Steven Universe thus far. Now this by no means makes the episode bad, because the execution, the feelings the episode generated in the viewer, and the interactions between the characters were all really solid. It's a case of a simple story being told incredibly well. You may know what's going to occur, but you are eager to be in the moment and see it play out. So the episode was a fun and enjoyable watch, despite everything the episode was trying to establish about Steven and Connie being obvious long before the episode had finished. There was one brief moment, however, where I began to question if the plot had completely jumped the shark before my very eyes and transformed into some bizarro world Twilight Zone ridiculousness. There were two scenes with some animation flubs, and characters ended up with enormous heads. No joke, their heads were twice the size they should be. It was so flagrant that for a moment I didn't think it could merely be a drawing error, and I started wondering whether Steven forcefully morphing his body was starting to cause the entire universe to bend and warp out of proper alignment or something like that, which resulted in people around him gaining weird proportions. I know, that's super stupid and ludicrous, right? But look how gigantic the heads of Connie and Amethyst were. I mean, they were just massive. How did that not get caught during post-production or something like that? But yeah, that thought lasted only a dozen seconds or so, but I have to mention it because of how silly and dumb the thought was. I'm still laughing that I even thought it up in the first place now. Speaking of laughs, I have to give major praise to the comedy in this episode, particularly toward the end. I may have laughed more during this episode than any other of this show. I actually failed to comprehend the record gag because I had forgot who Garnet's voice actor was, but had I remembered, that would have been a really amusing fourth wall joke. Other notable mentions which had me chuckling were Steven's first boy remark,
"When Connie grows up and becomes president, what is that gonna make me? First boy?"
Which makes me wonder whether or not he comprehends the full extent of what he said. Amethyst being a car seat, which I failed to notice until she talked, which made it all the more hilarious for me. Connie freaking out about the concept of Steven becoming a zygote, and Amethyst's potentially dirty joke.
Is there more where that came from?
As for the concept of Steven starting to grow facial hair,
Forever young.